that 409 was, or 403 was meant for, were these kind of circumstances where someone with no qualifications and no background training is in an area that he clearly has no clue about. So we object to his testimony coming in on that. He said that doesn't.
At some point, the defense is allowed to defend themselves.
Why?
I know that was said tongue in cheek. The transcript will reflect that everyone's laughing. But the reality is, if he was a treating physician and has observations of Maya or the mom, then those are going to be relevant for the jury. If you feel he was inappropriate with his diagnosis, I'm confident you are going to excel with your cross-examination.
Thank you,
But
Judge.
at the end of the day, I still have to let the jury hear all the information. So, is there anything else with respect to Dr. Menendez other than you disagree with his diagnoses?
No, I don't think there's a whole lot of hearsay within hearsay on that one.
Okay.
I think that's mostly for purposes of medical diagnosis. That's not a problem.
So it doesn't sound like anything else with Dr. Menendez. Now, what about his records? Is this something that you need your paralegal for, or are those records able to come in?
I'm hesitant to allow them to come in at this point. I don't know if it's going to make much difference to counsel because the court's reviewed and ruled on the deposition. So I don't know that they need those in order to play it. We probably would prefer to take one more look at it, since again, it is fairly voluminous. And our big complaint is the same thing about random. I don't even know if we call it diagnosis. It's not really even a diagnosis.
That sounds like cross-examination.
What?
Cross-examination.
Judge, we do have one issue about a deposition that's being played today. Maybe we should move to that.
Okay.
I'll be brief, Your Honor. We have two depositions we're going to play to try to fill the rest of today after this one. There's only one we'd like reconsideration of a court's ruling, and if I could approach.
Who are we talking about?
Dr. Behar Posey, she's videotaped for deposition that she unfortunately passed away. It's one section from page 38 to 42 that deals with alleged false allegations of child abuse.
Just giving me the 4 pages for one.
Might I direct you to, well, you can take my copy.
No.
No, it's that is not.
So, what's that?
He doesn't like minis.
My vanity gets me to not wear
Can we put it up on the
reading
screen?
glasses. Just grant to me, my arms are long enough so I can be able to see.
Sorry.
I gotta go to get his arms going.
It's,
What does it say?
it's the next page.
We can see.
You can have my copy.
You said pages 38 to 42.
38 to 42.
So, sorry. Page 38.
Page 38, line 15 through 42, line 6. We did object to this. It was overruled. We'd like reconsideration.
And so I allow this in.
You did allow it in, and you'll see that all these questions are about the harms of false reporting.
If the court allowed it in,
Can I read it first real quick?
yes, sir.
Thank you. And remind me, Dr. Behar Posey's role.
She was the emergency physician in the ED on October 7th.
And it ends on page 42, which,
My objection is to page 42, line 6.
Do you happen to have my rulings from that deposition,
I do, Your Honor.
so I can kind of see where I was?
Yes, you want me to have them, you want the DIN?
Well, yeah, that, I can pull it up that way.
September 2023, I'm looking for the DIN. And it was. This one.
Looks like it's DIN 3371. Well, it looks like there was only an objection to lines 18 through 21 on page 35. I don't see there was any objection made for the other pages. Well, actually, 40, this on page 40 there was. I take that at 40 at 17.
To the extent we made the objection on the predicate questions in advance, we would like the court to consider that objection.
Okay, well, it looks like you didn't designate objections to page 38, 39 at all. So it looks like you started at page 40, line 17. So
We would respectfully request the court to rule on an objection that we're now making, understanding that we are making it for the first time now on those predicate pages, Your Honor.
Your Honor, where did the objection that they made at page 40, line 17?
their first objection in the area they're talking about right now is on page 40, line 17.
And that continues through how far today?
Page 42, line 7, which is where Mr. Shapiro.
My response now, Your Honor?
Yes, that's right.
Well, the relevance has been brought in by the defense's questioning of our witnesses, including the dissolution of marriages. They made an issue of the fact that at one point Jack and Beata filed for, made moves towards separation. Further down, it talks about damage to the child's psychological health from these issues. That is clearly relevant here since we have several witnesses discussing the trauma and PTSD. As far as
Yeah, I rephrased the question there, and the second question is not objectionable at all, it looks like. How many cases? That's not to the form. Or that, if that is to the form. So it's just this objection that really is.
Isn't about the report to the abuse hotline.
Well, true.
And the issue is whether, I've already found as a matter of law that there was reasonable cause to make the abuse hotline, so the hospital's immune.
Understood.
I disagreed with the case law that I had to apply, but I don't get the choice to avoid case law.
I understand that. Now, I'd just like to point out that Dr. Bahar Posey is unique because she treated Maya Kowalski in the emergency room before there was any report of child abuse.
Right.
So her opinions about a diagnosis of Munchausen by proxy, given her extensive background with these issues, is relevant. That she didn't see anything of concern is relevant, regardless of reporting. Her credentials, her background, it's very important that she didn't see anything of concern in what she observed in the emergency room. She handed over the patient, and then other doctors, less informed, did what they did.
And we have a medical malpractice count in there about diagnosis.
Well, but are you suggesting that on the date in the emergency room, this doctor was supposed to have understood everything there is about CRPS and be able to synthesize that? And then where do these questions go about her, I guess, tenure as a medical director in Hillsborough County? What does that have to do with medical malpractice?
Well, Judge, in this instance, it's more about the decision to change a diagnosis that had been accepted by Johns Hopkins for at least the prior 6 months and arguably more in one evening. And we believe that her testimony as to the analysis process and what needs to go into it is relevant material to that.
I think just like I did yesterday for you when I said I probably need to reconsider, I think I'm going to reconsider this and I'll exclude. Now, I was never provided 38 through 40, so that looks to be some in substance of 40 line 17 through 42 line 7. So why don't we cut 38 line 15 through 42 line 6?
May I approach to retreat?
Yes. Because it doesn't go to an issue in this case.
Thank you. We'll have that edited and ready to play. Do you have that, Clint?
So is our witness ready to go?
I just went to look, she's in the hallway.
Okay, can we go grab her and let's put her on the witness stand? Let's grab the jury and bring in the jury. Okay, please be seated, everybody. Okay, members of the jury, did you have a good lunch? Yes. Glad to hear that. I want to confirm while you were away, you did not discuss this case amongst yourselves. You did no investigation. You received no information. Is that all correct? And did anyone approach you about this case? Did anyone see any media snippets about this case? Okay. We're going to get the witness. Is that correct? Yep. The deputy went, yeah. Maybe she went to the restroom. There she is. Well, welcome back.
Welcome back to you.
Thank you.
How was your lunch?
It was very short.
Well, sorry to hear that.
At least I got about 4 bites today. So I want to confirm you understand you are still under oath.
I understand completely.
Mr. Anderson, you may begin your cross-examination.
May it please the court. Ms. Nyhouse, on direct examination, you testified that you never saw Maya in pain. Is that right?
That's correct. It's
And
me.
you
It's
also
me. Yes.
testified, if I remember correctly, that you put everything down.
It's me. Yes.
I'm so sorry, Ms. Nias.
Thank you.
You put everything down of significance in your notes. Is that right?
I put down everything that I witnessed and saw.
Right. And you had, in fact, previously testified that somebody saying that they were in pain is a sign that they're in pain. Have you not?
Say that again.
You have said previously that someone saying they're in pain, that they are in pain, is a sign that they are in pain. Right?
I don't believe I said it like that. No.
Well, remember your deposition of November 18th, 2020? You were sworn to tell the truth?
Find world-class neuro specialists who treat you like a person and not just a patient.
You remember that?
Vaguely.
Right. And I asked you a series of questions about how much you knew about rating pain. Recall
You
that?
said rating pain? Yes.
Page in mind, please.
Sure. Page 130, beginning at line 9. I can show it to her if she wants.
If you could show it to her, please.
May I approach?
You may.
And 9 there. Down to 8. The next page.
Says line number 9 says question. Are you telling the jury that your ability to ask somebody?
Speak to yourself.
Oh. Sorry. I never stated that I was an expert.
If you look 3 questions before that, I believe you said you had training.
I do. I've been trained. Yes. Is it
And?
EMTI?
And when asked about that training and what it was that let you know if someone was in pain by that training, you said by asking them, right?
That's one way to ask somebody if they're in pain or to find out. Yes.
Right. And the response then, according to you, would be relevant as to whether or not they're in pain. True?
That could be true.
Mike.
Do what? Is this better?
Yes.
Now, if I may, I'd like to, if I may approach you.
I think Sherry has a copy of the deposition.
No, this is the deposition, excuse me, Your Honor. This is the Safe Children Coalition Visit Observation Form from October 24th, 2016.
Yeah.
Am I?
Did she still have a copy?
Yeah.
She's a copy of that?
She's not. You're great.
He's got copies here.
We've got 4 copies here.
Mr. Hughes has all 4 of
Yeah,
them.
I'll say all 4, Greg.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
And Mr. Whitney approach. All right, so, ma'am, if you would turn to I think it's the third page in, and tell me then whether Maya told you on 1, 2, 3, 4 occasions that she was in pain.
Where exactly?
All right. Well, if you look at the bottom of the first paragraph here, not the half one on the top, the last 3 lines on the top paragraph. Kowalski asked Maya how she was feeling.
Earl objecting sentences.
You said the third page, correct?
Mr. Anderson, this document's not in that.
Oh, I know.
Not read from it.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to orient the witness.
If you need to, you can approach her and point it out.
All right.
This is the third page.
Right there.
Mr. Kowalski asked Maya how she had been feeling, and she stated not good. And I asked her what not good meant. She stated that she meant she is hurting. I asked her where. Maya stated all over. The father lifted Maya up out of her wheelchair and
We can't read everything into it. Number 2 here. If you look, that's the beginning word there.
on the list for the next visit.
Yes. You say,
Maya pointed to her right forearm, stating her old IV site hurts bad.
now on the bottom here, last 3 lines.
Maya stated that she attended physical therapy.
We'll object if you said we're having a witness read something that's not there.
My background is Cuban Chinese. I grew up not knowing anybody was sick, so I currently just met.
You're not agreed over money.
Just reviewing your notes, refresh what you saw and heard.
Yes,
And in declaration of pain number 3, does it refresh your recollection that Maya stated that parallel bars hurt too much?
Same objection.
I'll read the paper.
Finish this, go ahead and answer the question.
that's what she said. Physical therapy, yes.
Top of the next page, second and third line down.
What did you want me to read?
Well, just read to yourself, if I may, Your
Why
Honor.
don't you just point it out for her so she can get
No, I see it. What do you want me to read?
To yourself.
Being smart.
And what I want you to do is, you can read your note, if it refreshes your recollection of what you saw and heard, and then answer his questions, hopefully without reading,
There's a question now?
Would you agree with me now? In at least 4 instances in your report, Maya Kowalski stated that she was in pain or that she was hurt.
She said that the physical therapy to help her was hurting her, yes. And she stated that she sometimes sleeps and wakes up with pain.
And more than that,
And then what?
and more than that,
What do you mean and more than that?
an old IV site.
Oh, the old IV site that she got in Mexico.
Really hurt.
She didn't say really, she said that it hurt.
That's not an IV. Bottom there, what is it? Just a refresh your recollection as to what Maya stated about whether or not she's hurting.
In the last paragraph?
No, ma'am. The bottom of right here.
you could go and
Show her again.
You're on a different page. Didn't I just read this?
overall.
This is the same thing I just read.
Does this indicate again, that Maya said she's not doing good, that she was hurt.
It's all about refreshing her recollection.
Is your recollection refreshed?
Yes, this is what I just said that she said.
So Maya did state she was in pain.
She did. However, she didn't display any signs of pain. Not once. She played like a normal little girl.
Okay. But if telling you you're in pain is a sign of pain, she gave you 4 different signs she was in pain. Did she not?
She stated at 4 different times that she was in pain. Physical therapy that the hospital gave her to help her. She stated that she was in pain from an old IV site that she got while she was in Mexico. She stated that she woke up in pain, and she stated, I can't remember what the first thing was, that she hurt. However, just somebody saying that and not showing you any signs or other symptoms that she's in pain is not an actual portrayal in my EMT profession to be the whole picture of pain.
Ma'am, all I ask you is whether 4 times Maya expressed that she was in pain in your report of October 24th.
I said yes. I read it to you.
Let's look then at your next one. We might, your October 27th report. That part, Joanne?
Okay.
Second page.
What's all the plus about? It's your favorite QVC issues and channels and shows. Plus,
Yeah, too much for me.
This paragraph.
Mhm.
Does that refresh your recollection that Maya said she was in pain all over?
Maya did say that, yes.
Let's look again at the next page. Paragraph here.
I documented that the RN was
Let me ask a question, ma'am. Does that refresh your recollection that Maya mentioned that she was in pain when you first arrived?
say that again.
Does this refresh your recollection that Maya told you when you came in that she was in pain when you first arrived?
Maya did not mention any pain throughout the visit, except for when we first arrived.
And then somebody came in to give her tramadol. Do you know what tramadol is?
I do.
And during the course of this, did you have Charlotte Laporte, with you?
At this visit,
Yes.
I do not believe Charlotte was with me during this visit.
All right. So during the November visit, was she with you? Do you recall?
November 4th,
Yes.
yes, Charlotte was with me.
And was she trained also to take down observations of pain?
I can't speak to what the case manager has been trained for.
Have you reviewed any of her notes to see whether she, at the same time you said she was not in pain, she found she was in pain?
I do not believe that I read Charlotte's notes, no.
You also said that you believed that Maya's feet never turned in. Is that right?
I didn't say never.
Okay. Well, did you not say on 2 or 3 occasions when you came there, Maya's feet were flat on the floor, she did not have her feet turned in, things of that nature, on direct examination?
I stated that Maya's feet were in the correct anatomical position, except for the time that she said to her father about her feet and she turned them in.
And you recall at that point, there was a little discussion about taking photographs. You took one,
I'm required to.
and Jack Kowalski took 2. Is that right?
No, I took the photos for Mr. Kowalski.
The one you took did not show her feet, did it?
I'm not required to take a picture of her feet, I was required to take a picture of her.
All right. The ones that Mr. Kowalski took, or you took with Mr. Kowalski's camera, did show her feet. Her in the Harlequin outfit showing her feet.
I don't recall the photo. I know that I took 2 photos.
We show they're in evidence, Your Honor. First, 2571-004.
It's in evidence, yes.
She acting fidgety. But she was in the
Do
bathroom.
you see her feet turning inward there?
I see her feet not straight.
Let me show the next one. I forgot the number. It's in evidence though. Can
I
you
see
see
them.
her feet?
Yes.
Do they appear to be turned in?
I don't recall. I know that she was moving her feet around to steer herself around that room.
Mhm. Do you know what dystonia is, ma'am?
Yes.
Do you know that's when someone's feet or arms or hands go into a position and lock there?
I've heard of that, yes.
That's exactly what Maya had on that day, isn't it?
No, Maya was moving around the room freely with her feet steering herself around the room.
My question is simply, was Maya Kowalski, if you know what dystonia is, Maya Kowalski displaying dystonia,
I don't believe she's displaying dystonia.
right? Are you a doctor?
I am not.
Are you a psychologist?
I am not.
Are you a pain management specialist?
I am not.
Get a
This is
baby.
just your opinion on what is dystonia and what's not dystonia, is that right?
This is my opinion on how she was moving around the room freely using her feet to
I'm
steal a
simply asking you
wheelchair.
whether the pictures reveal here that she had dystonia at the time you said she didn't.
I can't testify to whether she has dystonia or not. I'm not a doctor.
Right?
I'm testifying to the fact that she moved her feet around freely.
Ma'am, do you think that CRPS involves paralysis?
That what?
That CRPS involves paralysis.
I don't know enough about CRPS.
So why are you spending all the time mentioning whether she can move herself around with her hands and feet in her wheelchair?
Because I was trained to document as a police officer, to record every single detail and observe and report and monitor her safety. And that's what I did.
Yeah, you did, and you asked a number of questions throughout each one of these, right?
I did ask questions, yes.
This was Jack Kowalski's time with his daughter, was it not?
Correct.
And you asked enough questions to take up 3.5 to 4 pages, is that right?
That's not accurate at all.
Well, where else would you get the information, man?
I did not spend 3 or 4 pages during each visit asking questions. I sat there for the most part quietly and took notes.
Did Jack Kowalski not ask you on more than one occasion for extra time because they had to respond to so many of your questions?
Jack Kowalski never said that he wanted more time because he had to respond to so many of my questions.
Did he
He
ask
asked
you
for
for more
more
time?
visits with his child.
Did he ask you for more time?
He asked for more visits with his child.
And you also said that Maya was happy through the entire time, is that right?
Yes.
Did it come to your attention on several occasions she was crying?
Maya never had tears. She whined when her dad was leaving.
Maya made crying sounds at the end of the visit?
And no tears were seen.
You could tell whether or not she had tears.
Yes.
So what she was doing?
Isn't it true, ma'am, that throughout this, Maya was complaining that she was not happy? In fact, she was not able to sleep.
Maya brought up not being able to sleep once, and she said she wakes up sometimes.
And she said, not happy.
Correct. She did state she's not happy.
So which is it? Is she happy or not happy?
Can you show me exactly where I wrote she's not happy so I can put it in the correct context, please?
And while I'm finding this, didn't she tell you on more than one occasion the hospital staff don't care, or doesn't care?
I don't recall.
Again, take a look at your visit of 11/4/2016 at the very middle of the page, under where it says mermaid picture.
Out of it.
Second page.
I see it.
Does Maya express to you that the hospital staff doesn't care?
I see it. Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection of Maya stating that she believed the hospital staff doesn't care about her?
Maya stated that, yes.
Your view was that the staff did care.
Absolutely, the staff cared.
How many of the staff? Well, I don't see here any interviews of the staff. Did you interview all the staff?
When you refer to staff, who exactly?
I don't know. The social workers and the nurses around.
I spoke with the social workers. I also spoke with the three, I don't know if they were RNs that came in the room. Yes.
And where is that documented, what they said?
Give me a moment. The third page of November 4th at the top of the page.
Sorry. Where were you saying?
The third page, November 4th, 2016, at the top of the page. It starts, 3 nurse practitioners came in.
Okay.
She said
Where's the interview where you ask any one of them all about how Maya's doing?
they stated that Maya is a completely different
No,
person,
I'm
that
not
she's
asking you
doing
that.
well.
I'm simply asking you where it is that you put down the substance of an interview.
I didn't interview them. They were speaking to everybody in the room on how well she's doing, that she's a completely different person.
And I believe you just testified that Maya never had tears in her eyes, right?
Correct. Maya did not have tears in her eyes.
Take a look at November 4th, 2016, and go down to the right above the center of the page. I can show you if I may approach. To refresh your recollection, for me to show you.
Sure.
Does that refresh your recollection?
Where you have it highlighted, I see it, yes.
Did you in fact put in your report that Maya had tears in her eyes? Yes or no?
I don't see that, no.
You don't see the line?
That you just showed me, no. It says Maya wanted to go home. Father said she's getting stronger.
That's not it.
That's what you were just showing me. I did write that she had tears in her eyes.
So that's
I did not recall
three
that.
times you told the jury something and it wasn't correct?
Objection on that. Sustained.
Haven't you said 3 times different? Strike it. Did you not tell the jury that Maya never said she was in pain, never was in pain, and in fact put in the report on multiple occasions that she was stating she was in pain?
Sustained.
I stated that Maya did not.
That's all right. All right. Again, did you review Charlotte LaPorte's report of November 4th when she came with you?
I don't recall reviewing her report at all.
Well, is there anywhere in your report of November 4th, your report, where you document that Maya said that she had been dropped on a couple of occasions and it hurt her?
I recall that conversation. I don't know if it was on the 4th.
Okay. And that she was not happy and not able to sleep because she was in pain. Did you document that?
All in the same sentence, because I don't think it was the same sentence, but I recall those, yes.
Calm down.
And finally, I think you put into your report that there was a video camera over Maya's room.
I did. When I entered the room, I observed the camera.
And so you've made a lot of allegations here about Maya's ability to move around. Did you ever ask for any video from that camera?
I believe I asked, you said answer? I believe I asked one of the staff members at All Children's if the video had been, or if the camera had been monitoring the room. And I believe they stated that it was, but they were going to move her because she didn't require me, or she didn't need to be videoed any longer.
Well, why would they not? Didn't the nurse confirm to you that the camera was in fact recording video and sound in the room?
You can answer.
I said yes.
Where's the video? Did you?
I believe I informed the supervisors at Child Protection that the room was being video recorded and that they could possibly ask for those videos. Yes.
Well, this is October 24th. This wasn't as to the 48 hours when Maya was in her room. You understand that?
Say that again?
Don't worry about it. Did you ever get back from Johns Hopkins, through any means, any video that confirms the things you're saying here?
I did not observe any video.
And in terms of where you got your information for all of these things, it's safe to say that you weren't living at the hospital through this period of time, correct?
I don't understand the first part of your question.
You were there for about anywhere from, counted it up, 7 to 7.5 hours on 4 occasions over the course of 2 weeks. True?
Correct.
The rest of the time, you have no idea what was going on, do you?
I was not at the hospital other than those 4 times.
And in those 4 times, you gathered information from the hospital, did you not?
Yes.
Your witness.
No questions at this time. Members of the jury, do any of you have any questions?
Juice up. He want that money his wife's supposed to get. Want the millions. 220 millions.
The jury, in the light of the number of questions, I think what I'm going to do is have you go into your room. Do not discuss this case amongst yourselves, do not do the investigation and receive no information. All rise. For a second.
What they doing? Oh, have mercy. Everybody want money, y'all. Everybody want money. They doing anything
Are you
to
sick
get
of
money.
having issues with your webinars, wasting tons of time on trouble
Is it Nevis?
Yes, me plus
Yes.
us.
Yes, I can have you wait just outside. Thank
You
you.
want me to leave this here?
Yes, ma'am, you can leave all that there. The witness is now out of our presence, so you can look at the paperwork. But first question, in the sequin picture, how many charms are on that bracelet? Did you see evidence of lesions or abrasions at the point of contact?
No objection.
Okay, so red number 2. What was the reason the observations were stopped?
I don't know that they were.
I should go back.
She knows, she doesn't know, but ask her.
I don't know if it's gonna get to a court order, Judge. I don't know.
Yeah, we object.
There's no court order on that.
Well,
Her observations, or are we talking about, I don't know if the question was asking her supervision or the observations that were being made by the video recording allegedly.
I don't know, Judge. My concern is that it's asking why did she stop going? She only had for visits. I think that was a court order.
Okay, y'all, while they deliberating right there together,
Why did she stop going?
what is to take care of Maya trial?
Well, she was brought in to talk about her observations. So
I don't know.
the fact that she stopped coming, if it was at the behest of the dependency court or the DCF, or
I don't know why. I don't know the answer, Judge. I just, because of the court's rulings, just raising the specter that I don't know what her answer is going to be and possibly be entering into that.
This court, the witness is still being, she went there and she was told to go there. Supervisor told her to go. She went. I'll think about that one. Let's go on. You were asked on your observations of Maya and gave your description. Are you asserting to this juror that Jack were occupied with themselves in a, I think it's giddy, in oblivious way while your team searched through the room, bags, fridge, and confiscated items or resistance from Maya / Jack?
No objection.
Yeah, we object. This is our representative. It asserts facts, not evidence. It goes to what DCF perceptions are in terms of what was taken, what was not.
Well,
This goes
the
to-
biggest concern, I'm sorry, is that this is this juror's interpretation of evidence, Judge. And they're confusing things between the first, as to who removed stuff and.
The defendants brought out that information and it was issued before the jury as to her ability to observe. And it's a factual question, her going through the room. And it also goes to her ability to perceive things if she's preoccupied doing that.
I'm going to overrule the defendant's objection. I will ask that one. Let's move on to red number 4. There's a couple questions on this one. Your testimony for your 4 occasions to observe Maya portrays Maya as having some physical difficulties, but able to move about and get around via her wheelchair. Is that correct? So far in this trial, the jury has been presented with a plethora of photos and videos of Maya taken by both the parents and staff at JHatch. Does your team, you or the hospital possess any photos or videos to corroborate your testimony?
No objection.
No objection.
Yeah, they even did no research.
Red number 5. Well, there's a parentheses, a fellow retired law enforcement officer inquires in parentheses. You several times referred to a reported, quote, pain, end quote, was from an old Mexico IV. Am I incorrect in believing that whatever pain is being reported by Maya should be documented and acted upon? Or am I to then believe, quote, old injuries, end quote, are not to be considered in Maya's case? Please educate me as to the proper train of thought I should be in.
I don't think that's a question for the juror.
I think it's a
For the
real hard
witness.
one, Judge. I think
I
that was
object.
appropriate.
Yeah.
So it sounds like both are objecting and the court will sustain. So I'll just give that one to you right now, Madam Clerk. Red number 6. Is it your testimony that a young girl is, quote, happy, end quote, to be away from her family in a hospital? Or is she happy to be happy? Yeah. Or is she happy to be having a visit with her family? Next question. Are you saying that a person is not in pain if they say they are in pain, if you do not think you see symptoms of pain? As a person that works in the healthcare profession, are you not to believe what a patient says their pain is? Did you not say her room was completely organized? In the photo we just saw, the couch was not organized, neither was the floor or her tray table. What part of her room was organized?
All fair.
No objection.
Red number 7. First question, did CPI check data before taking Maya, and what did they find? Next question, do you know what CRPS is and what are the symptoms are, and have you been?
No objection.
We have to object to the first one.
No.
First one?
Based on the instructions of defense counsel to move it along and get away from the CPI, CPT discussion.
I don't think she can speak to the CPI.
That's fine.
No, we agreed it. Number 1 is not.
Okay, it sounds like there's a unanimous decision on not to ask the first question. I agree with that decision not to ask it, and we will ask the other one.
Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I don't recall the second one.
Here it is. So that leaves us just back with red number 2. What was the reason the observations were stopped? What do you think she's going to say?
But do we want to review that with witness?
I'm going to do that, but I want to know what you all think she's going
I
to say.
think she's going to say the observation stopped once Maya was released from shelter.
I think she's going to say that there was other people within her organization that took over, and she was only there for some of them.
Well,
Your Honor, may I comment? I'm sorry, I think the difference is it went from supervised visits to unsupervised visits, and that's a court order. I think that's what you're talking, but I don't know.
okay. Let me bring her in. I'll ask her only that one question. If we have some follow-up questions, can I ask for Ms. Crowell's hand unexpected things? Well, if you're sick, then I know you were sick the other day, so if you feel like we need to leave, yes. Okay. Can someone grab the witness? The jury has a whole bunch of questions, but there's one I want to hear your answer to before I bring the jury back in. Okay, and feel free to sit down.
Okay, thank you.
What was the reason your observations were stopped?
Oh, I believe the case transitioned over to where there was a case manager assigned, so my position in it, I just wasn't needed anymore.
I couldn't hear the
I stated that I believe the case transitioned between CPI and the Safe Children Coalition, so my position as one of the safety managers in the interim was no longer needed.
I don't have any objections to that.
Objection. No objection.
Okay. I'm going to just remind you in front of the jury that you're still under it, okay? Let's bring in the jury. Yes, sir.
What? He wasn't supposed to do that. What? He wasn't supposed to do that. He wasn't supposed to answer that question, but not that jury being in that. These folks ain't doing right in the
Okay,
court.
please be seated. Members of the jury, I want to remind you that you're still under. Okay.
I understand.
The first question, in the Harley Quinn picture, how many charms are on that bracelet?
I would have to see the photo again.
Why don't we bring up the photo?
She looking like I supposed to know how many charms on there.
On the bracelet?
005 is much closer.
Apparently 005.
Are you speaking to the ankle bracelet?
I guess so.
I cannot tell.
Well, here's the next question. Did you see any evidence of any lesions or abrasions at that point of contact?
Where her bracelets are? No, I did not.
Next question. What was the reason that your observations stopped?
Because my position with the Safe Children Coalition, the case had transitioned from CPI to the Safe Children Coalition, so my services as a safety manager were no longer needed. It was assigned to somebody else.
The next question. You were asked on your observations of Maya and gave your description. Are you asserting to this jury that during that first visit you had, that Maya and Kyle and possibly Jack were occupied with themselves in a giddy and oblivious way while your team searched through the room, bag, fridge, and confiscated items and removed items? Or was there any signs of question? Are you asserting to this jury that during that first visit that Maya and Kyle and possibly Jack were occupied with themselves in a giddy and oblivious way while your team searched through the room, bags, fridge, and confiscated items and removed items? If you can answer that.
I can. They were enjoying themselves, playing, having a good time. Her and Kyle were wrestling. I would call it keep away from this one toy in the game. I would not describe my teammates and I searching the room in any kind of way that it was asked there. It was a casual open the refrigerator door. As safety managers and child protection and enter a home or area where this child's safety might be in question. It was just more of a open and shut, and the items that he brought with him, that was handled outside of the room.
Was there any signs of questions or resistance from Maya or Jack?
No.
The next question. Your testimony for your 4 occasions to observe Maya portrays Maya as having some physical difficulties, but able to move about and get around via her wheelchair. Is that correct?
My observations, I strongly believe that she moved around freely without limitations.
Mm. Mm.
So far in this trial, the jury has been presented with a plethora of photos and videos of Maya taken by both the parents and staff at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. Does your team, you or the hospital, possess any photos or videos to corroborate your testimony?
They're asking if I took photos to corroborate my testimony?
If you or your organization have photos to corroborate your testimony?
I took photos of the letters and the checks and the food. I photographed the refrigerator. I required to take a picture of Maya to upload into the state computer system. And my notes are very, very detailed. I took a report writing class in college, and I was assigned to just document everything that I saw, whether it was just some minute detail or something of importance. I just documented everything that I saw. I did my job and what I was assigned to do by Child Protection and the Save Children Coalition.
Next question. Is it your testimony that a young girl is, quote, happy, end quote, to be away from her family in a hospital? Or is she happy to be having a visit with her family?
Maya stated that she was happy to be away from her mother's anger on one instance, which is documented in my notes. And she was also happy to see Mr. Kowalski and Kyle.
Are you saying that a person
New and Sleep Number smart beds let you both sleep at your ideal level of comfort.
they say they are in pain if you do not think you see symptoms of pain? As a person that works in the health care profession, are you not to believe what a patient says their pain is?
I'm stating you would say, where? Does this hurt? Does this hurt? She would verbalize that, but she literally showed no signs of any kind of pain. She roughhoused just like my grandson, like your children. She did all of that, and I don't want to say never. I do not recall her ever once saying, ouch. Mr. Kowalski did not stop this roughhousing. He just let it go on. When I thought that her safety was in question when she bent way down to the floor, Mr. Kowalski didn't state, hey, don't do that. You could hurt yourself. None of that happened. They were playing like brother and sister and happy to see one another. When somebody says they're in pain, you should also ask other questions or see other signs or symptoms of them being in pain. Doctor pushes on your abdomen, you go, ow, okay, that's that. They said they were in pain, now it hurts here. So you need more information before you can state about all of this pain. She never once pushed her nurse's button and asked for any pain medication. In all of the visits, what did he state over? Absolutely nothing.
The next question from the jury. Did you not say her room was completely organized? In the photo we just saw, the couch was not organized, neither was the floor or her tray table. What part of her room was organized?
The part of her room over to the left side of the bed by the window, she had all of her shoes lined up by the chair and far under the chair. I'm not sure what photos they've seen.
Next question from the jury. Do you know what CRPS is and what the symptoms are? And have you been trained on how CRPS pain reacts to patients?
I am not a doctor. I've not been trained in CRPS. To be honest with you, I would have to sit down and Google it. It's a complex pain disorder. I know a very, very basic knowledge of it. I believe it stands for chronic repetitive pain syndrome. That's my basic knowledge. I would have to Google it.
That completes the asking of the jurors' questions. There were a couple I couldn't ask, but I asked most of them. Ms. Croyles, do you have any follow-up?
Just one. um, With respect to your role and observations that you made, and you documented in detail, you were there as an independent observer on behalf of CPI, correct?
That's correct, but
You were not associated with the hospital.
I'm absolutely not associated with the hospital. I was signed by Child Protection and the Safe Children Coalition, and I did what I was told to do by them.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the plaintiffs?
Yes, Your Honor. So you said that Maya, through all this, never complained of any pain. She never complained of any pain the whole time you were there, right?
I thought we just went over all of this.
Okay. What about when somebody touched her, like touched her leg or something? Did you testify that that wouldn't bother her?
I can't tell you what would bother Maya or not.
Isn't that what you just testified about? What bothers Maya and what does not?
I would not describe it as that, no.
Well, in fact, it sounded like you were almost making an argument rather than coming in as an independent witness, didn't it? No.
Sustained.
You felt the need to throw in every single fact you could possibly think of, regardless of whether or not it was responsive to the question, didn't you?
I'm going to overrule that one. You can answer that one.
I have no hidden agenda. I came in here and I described my job. That's it.
Isn't it true in one of your reports, you documented that when one of the nurses tried to touch Maya's leg, that she, to test what pain level it was, she touched it lightly and Maya squirmed and yelled, "Stop it, it hurts."
I don't recall that.
May I refer?
You may approach the witness.
Your Honor, is he refreshing his memory?
Yes.
What date, please?
This is not my note, sir.
This is not your
That's
note?
Charlotte Laporte's note.
Okay, so why would Charlotte Laporte document that in her report? And let me show you your report from the exact same day.
First of all, I object to the last question, the answer will be stricken. He's referencing documents that are not in evidence.
The jury will disregard the question that Mr. Anderson started to ask.
Predicate, Your Honor.
What?
May I approach?
Yeah,
Why don't you show
yeah,
Ms.
please.
Crowell?
Sorry, I thought we gave you all. a copy.
Well, I don't know what, I can't see it from here, sir. This is.
Yeah, it's hers.
No,
Why don't y'all come up here?
you may approach.
Hey, I'm Katie with StreamYard, and today I'm going to teach you about our new feature, local recordings. We are super excited to give you even more ways to level up your recordings, podcasts, webinars.
Mr. Anderson, what we just talked about.
Do you recall if you said anything in your report would refresh your recollection to see whether you said anything about someone touching Maya lightly and her
I don't
taking
recall
away?
that.
May I approach? Would refresh your recollection to take a look at this?
Did you have a specific spot in here?
I was simply asking you, ma'am, if you had documented that a nurse practitioner had touched Maya lightly and she had reacted to that.
I don't recall, but I'll read through this real quick and look. I can paraphrase what I documented about the nurse practitioner's visit.
All I want to know is if you documented the same thing that
I don't.
Ms. Laporte documented
I
the
did not
exact same
read
day.
Ms. Laporte's report. I have no idea what she documented.
As we discussed,
I am asking her.
you're not asking what we just talked about.
Does your report, does that refresh your recollection as to whether you documented in your report a situation where Maya was touched and pulled away?
In the paragraph that I documented with the nurse practitioners,
It's just really a yes or no.
I'm not going to read it. I described how happy they were with how Maya was doing. They stated she was a completely different person. They talked about hunting for shark teeth on the beach. Mr. Kowalski even asked them to tell one of the doctors hello. I did not document anything about anybody touching Maya's leg in this report.
Or reacting by pulling away and saying it hurts.
I don't recall documenting that or seeing that.
Now,
This is the only
did
instance
you,
with the nurses.
you were asked about photographs. You took one photograph of Maya and you testified you did not photograph her legs, right?
I took a photo of Maya, of her face, to upload in the state computer system. Then I took a couple of photos to be nice to Mr. Kowalski so he could take those photos home with him. I didn't specifically zoom in on Maya's leg. I took a picture of this man's little girl for him. That's what I documented and took a photo of.
Ma'am, all I'm asking you is, do you have any photographs, as asked by the jury, to document what you're saying, or film, or video, anything visual to document the things that you're saying here?
I need you to be specific on what things I'm saying, but you want to know if I took photos.
Maya being able to pull herself around the room, Maya's feet being straightened, Maya's ability to, I don't know, move her arms, all of the things you talked about that indicated to you that she was just fine. Where's the video? Where's the photograph?
I did not photograph her wrestling with her family and them having the visit with Mr. Kowalski. It was a family event. I was clearly there to document, which I did very much detail, right down to what she ate. My notes speak for themselves. They're 100% accurate of my observations in over 7 hours with that little girl.
Move to strike is non-responsive to the basic question, Your Honor. My question was simple. It was a yes or no. Do you have photographs and video or do you not?
I do not have photos of the events that I described. That would be inappropriate.
Inappropriate.
For a family visit when they're playing together as a family?
Do you recall whether the nurse advised you that you could go to Sally Smith to get recordings from the room?
I already testified to this.
No, you really didn't. But
What's the
can
legal
you?
basis for the objection?
Outside the scope, and I'm not sure where he's going, to be honest with you.
So I'll overrule that one question.
Would it refresh your recollection for me to show you your report of October 24th, 2016 about that issue?
Sure. You're welcome to.
Same one.
What page is that?
It's page 2. And right here,
Page 3?
in the middle of the second document.
I see it.
Does that refresh your recollection?
This is what I've already stated. I've recalled it and stated it.
So you do recall now that Nurse Lindsay advised you that you could get any film or video you needed from Sally Smith?
I stated this already.
Thank you. But you have none here today. How long have you prepped to testify?
When was our deposition?
No. How long did you prep for this testimony?
Object outside the scope.
No, she can answer.
I didn't keep track of the time, sir. I'm a very, very busy person and work extremely hard. This was probably the last thing on my plate.
Well, how many hours have you spent any time with the defense lawyers?
Anytime we communicated via email on what they needed, had my deposition. I still had my deposition from before.
Ma'am, I'm just asking you the last few days, have you been in
Yes.
contact with the defense counsel?
Yes,
On how many occasions?
I don't recall.
That many?
I didn't say that many. I just specifically can't state how many times.
Okay, so it was more than 1 or 2. Can the jury say that?
Yes, more than 1 or 2.
3 or 4?
I don't recall.
How many? Well, this was yesterday or the day before. You can't recall how many times you talked to the defense counsel about your testimony.
I
Is that
cannot
right?
testify under oath exactly how many times that I've spoken to them. More than 2 times.
Okay. More than 2 times in the last 2 days.
Is that a question?
Yes. Is it true? More than 2 times the last 2 days.
Yes.
Okay. And
Find world-class cardiologists who treat you like a person and not just a patient.
you were, I guess, critical of what? Maya for not asking for pain meds? That was part of your testimony?
I didn't say I was critical.
Well,
I did not state it was critical.
weren't you trying to point out to the jury it was part of your conclusion about why you believe she wasn't in pain? Was that she didn't ask for pain meds?
No, I said the whole picture over 7 hours of observing this little girl and her little brother.
Again, ma'am, all I'm asking you is yes or no. Did you say that?
Judge, I object.
You can,
Folks, you're gonna have to let her answer the question. If you need to move to strike, you can move to strike. But Let's give everybody the courtesy of asking a complete question and hearing a complete answer.
May the witness be instructed to answer yes or no to a yes or no question, and then say whatever she wants after that.
I will ask you to actually answer the question that's asked.
Did you or did you not just tell the jury one of the things that concerned you about whether she was in pain was she did not hit the button to have pain meds sent in?
I cannot answer that as a yes or no because it's not just a yes or no question. I'm sorry.
Is it that you can't remember saying it here
No,
in front
I'm
of the
saying it
jury?
requires more description than just yes or no.
Well, the only question is whether in front of this jury, maybe it was for lunch, an hour ago, you said that to support your idea that Maya was not in pain.
I was
Did you
not
or did you not
supporting
in
an
here?
idea, sir. I was describing what I saw.
I understand, ma'am. All I'm asking you as a predicate question is whether you remember stating that before the jury here today.
Stating what?
That one of the reasons you thought that Maya may not be in pain was she didn't punch the button for the nurse to get pain meds.
The way you worded that, no, I did not say that. That's not how I said that.
Okay. Well, are you aware then that Maya Kowalski was getting regular doses of tramadol?
I can tell you that
Were you aware of that?
I was aware of one time.
Okay. So you think it was only on this one time? Is that your conclusion?
I'm not here to think. I'm telling you what I saw.
Okay. And what is tramadol?
It's a pain med, like we said an hour ago.
It's an opiate pain med, is it not?
I don't know the definition of it. I couldn't tell you the contents of it. I know it's a pain medicine.
But in any event, Maya was receiving opiate pain meds during this period of time, at least once, right?
Maya received tramadol one time under my observation.
Do you know how much she took and when she took it in relationship to any of the scenes you report?
No, I can testify that the nurse came in the one time for tramadol.
And you were also concerned with Maya sitting crisscross applesauce, right?
But they're saying that?
No, with you seeing that.
I observed and reported that she was sitting in an Indian-style position, crossing her legs on many, many occasions.
And this proved to you what?
When Maya sat Indian-style, she did not verbalize any signs of pain over and over the many times that she sat that way.
Do you have any training in physical therapy?
I would not call it a training, sir.
Some?
I have been to many physical therapy appointments with patients and myself.
So you must be aware then, as two physical therapists have testified before this jury, that when a child has low back leg pain, that is the most comfortable position for them to avoid pain. Surely you know that.
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
Do you know that a child with low back leg pain and leg pain often sits crisscross because that is the best way to prevent pain?
I've never heard that. Nobody informed me of that.
And finally, I think you testified that you, on her ankle bracelet, didn't see any lesions. Did you check the rest of her body to see if she had any lesions?
Sir, it's not in my job description to investigate Maya's entire body. No, I did not.
So you don't know whether she had lesions or not?
I do not.
And so should the jury take then that you put everything as 100% accurate, right down the tears in Maya's eyes?
I'm saying the jury should take into account that I spent over 7 hours with this little girl, and I documented what I saw in that time period.
And when you documented it, you got a lot of things wrong, didn't you?
When I documented it, notes are wrong, I believe my notes are correct in what I observed.
Nothing further.
Anything further?
Just one question.
With respect to your testimony here today and any conversations you had with the defense side, were you
With who?
with the defense attorney, were you asking you to come in and tell the truth and testify what you observed?
Correct.
Bleeding.
And is that what you did?
Overruled, she can answer.
And is that what you did today to the best of your ability?
Absolutely, 110%.
Right. Thank you, ma'am.
Any follow-up on that one question?
No, Your Honor, that's not necessary.
Members of the jury, I see we've got more questions.
Okay, and members of the jury, just as a reminder, all documents that are actually in evidence will be back with you. Those that are not in evidence will not be back. Ms. Nias, jury wants to know, were you paid to testify today?
Absolutely not.
So then we don't need to ask by whom or how much. Okay, and then that was the only question that I was actually able to ask defense. Are there any further follow-up?
No.
None at this time, Your Honor.
May this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
She released from its subpoenas, or she still need to be under subpoena?
She's released, maybe excused.
I would leave now. Okay, let's see here. We came back in at 1:40, so we're about an hour and 20 minutes. Do you have something really short, or is?
We have two video depositions. One runs about 50 minutes, one runs about an hour 10.
So you heard that. Do you want to take a break now? Do you want to do the 50-minute one now and then take a break? You want 5 minutes now?
That's fine.
Oh, you want to do the 50-minute one? Okay, the jury is requesting to do the 50-minute deposition. Am I hearing that correctly? Okay, so tell us who you are calling and I'll.
Which one's the shorter of the two? Hold on, Your Honor.
I'm trying to figure out which one's the 50-minute one, Judge.
Oh, that's okay. I'm just trying to figure out the lights.
How much? Okay, then we will be calling Dr. Behar Posey as our next witness by video.
Yes, you may. Just make sure that
All right, here begins the video deposition.
Need power? Try the #1 longest lasting AA battery.
Your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, doctor, you're currently employed at Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital,
Yes, I am.
and you worked there in the fall of 2016.
Yes, I did.
And just to orient the jury, you understand we're here to ask you questions today about the care and treatment of Maya Kowalski by John Hopkins Children's Hospital and yourself.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Exhibit 3 will be plaintiffs 04069 through plaintiffs 04077. It's a 9-page physician note.
Okay.
You have that in front of you, doctor?
Yeah. And you want to make that 3?
Yes, sir. All right. Doctor, in front of you is what appears to be your note from October 7th, 2016. Do you agree?
Correct.
And did you review this ahead of today's deposition?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And is this a true and accurate record of your observations from October 7th, 2016?
Yes.
And you're duty bound by the hospital to keep accurate, complete records. Is that correct?
Yes.
And your code of ethics and duty towards the patient requires the same. Is that right? I'm sorry. Page 6 of 9, it's plaintiffs 4074. And on that page, about 2/3 the way down, you see medical decision making and then an entry for differential diagnosis.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I want to spend a few minutes unpacking that entry for differential diagnosis. First, could you please explain to the jury what a differential diagnosis is?
Differential diagnosis is a list of things that you consider when you're, after getting your history and examining a patient as to what might be going on with the patient.
Okay.
It can be a complete list. There may be things missing. It depends on whether you can think of every possible explanation or not. But usually, it's a broad list of what could be going on with the patient.
But as you just testified, you're required to keep a complete and accurate record of your thinking of that on that day. Is that correct?
Yes.
So this note would reflect your medical decision making on October 7th, 2016.
Yes.
When do you conduct a differential diagnosis?
After getting a history and examining the patient.
Do you do this with all patients?
For the most part.
For any simple case, you would also do a differential diagnosis?
Yes.
So let's talk about what you listed there in your differential diagnosis. I'd like to go through each of these in turn and understand what you were thinking at that point. So the first condition you listed was withdrawal.
Correct.
Can you explain what you were thinking?
The child had received ketamine, and from the history that I had obtained, it appeared on more than one occasion. So the presentation of the child and the symptoms could be explained by a child going through withdrawal from ketamine.
What did you understand at that point about how much ketamine Maya had been administered?
I didn't have a good idea of the total volume that she had received in the past. All I had was the information that Dad gave me when she presented.
And do you recall what that was?
Yes, that she had been placed in a coma at some point in Mexico, receiving ketamine for a prolonged period of time, and that she had continued to receive it. I don't know how many times, and that she had just received a dose the day before presentation.
As what?
That she had just received it the day before presentation to the emergency department.
Were you made aware, or based on the review of the records, did you understand that other than the day prior, what the previous administration of ketamine, when that would have occurred?
No, I did not know.
Okay. You talked about dependence on ketamine. Are you talking about physical or psychological dependence?
Both.
And would you please describe the physical dependence symptoms of ketamine?
I prefer not to go into that right now because I don't have a complete information on that. So I don't want to give you the wrong information.
But you generally understood on October 7th, 2016, that physical dependence was a possibility.
Yes.
From the usage of ketamine. And what source would you have gone to verify that?
I didn't need to go to a source at that point. It was just something that I was considering.
Did you confer with anyone inside the hospital?
I spoke with anesthesia.
Who did you speak with in anesthesia?
I don't remember.
And that's not reflected in your record.
I did document that I spoke with anesthesia.
Can you please point me to where you documented that you spoke with anesthesia?
It says, I discussed the dosage with anesthesia, and at the second line from the bottom.
And withdrawal was one of those. You didn't have a strong confidence that was not the case, but you listed it because it was a possibility. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
What is RSD for the benefit of the jury?
It's reflex sympathetic dystrophy. It's known by other names, like chronic regional pain syndrome.
Okay. And why did you list that in your differential diagnosis?
That was what the father claimed that the child had.
Constipation. Why did you list that in your differential diagnosis?
The father told me that she had a history of constipation. She had just been seen in the emergency department for constipation. So it was in the list, and she was presenting with abdominal pain.
You also listed other intra-abdominal issue. Would you please explain that entry?
Well, the father told me that she had been seen in the emergency department for abdominal pain.
Mm-hmm.
So there are multiple other causes of abdominal pain.
Okay.
That have to be considered in any child that comes in with abdominal pain, especially when they were just in the hospital for the same reason.
So that was again based on the father's representation?
Yes. And the fact that the complaint was still persisting.
UTI, for the benefit of the jury, what is UTI?
Urinary tract infection.
Okay. Why did you list that?
Because that can cause abdominal pain.
Okay. That was not based on the father's representation. That was based on your medical opinion. Is that right?
It was something that you have to consider in any female with abdominal pain.
Okay. And then your last potential diagnosis there is psychogenic. Would you please explain that for the benefit of the jury?
Psychogenic is another thing that has to be considered with any child that presents with abdominal pain.
Would you elaborate on that term for the jury, please?
Psychogenic would be any kind of mental health problem that can present with signs and symptoms of abdominal pain. For example, depression, anxiety, conversion disorder. There's a whole list of these.
Sure. So you're referring to psychological conditions of Maya, the psychogenic entry there?
Psychogenic is something that you have to consider in a child that presents with abdominal pain.
Right. And when you enlisting that, you were thinking of various psychiatric diagnoses of Maya. Is that correct?
I was not aware that she has any psychiatric diagnoses.
You were considering psychiatric diagnoses of Maya. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be something to consider.
Okay. So next, I'd like to turn to page 8 of 9 here. It's plaintiff's 04076. And on that page, a third of the way down, we see impression, diagnosis. Now, this reflects your opinion following the differential diagnosis. Is that correct?
This is the working diagnosis when the child was admitted to the hospital.
So this predates your differential diagnosis?
No,
Was this impression and this diagnosis rendered after the differential diagnosis or before the differential diagnosis?
this is written, it's written after the differential diagnosis, but it doesn't mean that that's the diagnosis.
It plainly states diagnosis reflex sympathetic dystrophy. So would you please explain to me how that's not the diagnosis?
We oftentimes in the emergency department document a diagnosis that later on turns out not to be the correct diagnosis. You have to write a diagnosis when you're admitting the patient. At the point when the child presented, this was all I had, and therefore that's all I could write.
Well, you'd refined your opinion based on the differential diagnosis. Is that correct?
Because I could not rule all of these things in the emergency department. There is no way that I can rule all of these in or out in the emergency department.
And why not list other potential diagnoses here under your impression?
Because it wouldn't have changed anything as far as her management.
So a later provider reading this note would not understand that the diagnosis is RSD?
No, a later person that would look at this would see that that was the diagnosis that I admitted the patient with. Does not mean it's correct. It doesn't mean it's incorrect.
Okay, but it was your best opinion at the time. Is that correct?
No, as I said, you cannot rule all of these diagnoses in or out in the emergency department. That was the working diagnoses that I admitted the patient with.
Who establishes the working diagnosis?
I do.
Okay. Why list RSD over one of the other 5 conditions that you listed under differential diagnosis?
Because I couldn't rule them in or out, and it was the diagnosis that the parents claimed that the child had when the child arrived to the emergency department.
This is the only diagnosis that you could rule in.
I couldn't rule it in. It was the working diagnosis. It's what the child presented to the hospital saying that they had.
Did she present to the hospital with constipation?
Not to my knowledge.
Did she present to the hospital with abdominal pain?
Yes, she did.
Why not list abdominal pain under the diagnosis?
I could have put that there, but I didn't.
So you rendered some sort of decision and the outcome is reflex sympathetic dystrophy. Is that correct?
Again, it's a working diagnosis. It's not something that I could rule in or out in the emergency department.
All right. What I don't see listed here is Munchausen by proxy.
Psychogenic, I think it's in the DSM for psychogenic.
When we just discussed this, you stated that those were psychological diagnoses of Maya that you were considering. Is that correct?
Psychogenic was one of them.
Right. And psychogenic referred to psychological diagnoses of Maya, correct?
Yes.
Right. Not psychological diagnoses of Beata. Is that correct?
A lot of psychogenic problems in children are caused by their parents.
Okay, so your testimony is that your psychogenic categorization there includes potential for Munchausen by proxy.
It's in the DSM
Okay.
for psychiatric problems.
And is that something that you were actively considering
Yes.
when you admitted her, Munchausen by proxy?
Yes.
Okay. So upon suspecting Munchausen by proxy, you then turn to the Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital protocol for addressing suspected cases of Munchausen by proxy. Is that correct?
No,
Why not?
we don't have a protocol,
You don't have a protocol.
not in the emergency department.
The hospital doesn't have a Munchausen by proxy protocol.
We do not have a pathway or a protocol in the emergency department.
How long have you been at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital by the fall of 2016?
10 years.
All right, you previously, additionally, in 1998, gave a presentation at the first national conference on Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Is that correct?
I did.
Okay, and so at that time, you were aware of the literature out there.
The literature at that time, yes.
Okay, so you did not make that diagnosis on that day.
You don't make that diagnosis based on one emergency room visit.
Okay. So as you admitted Maya into the intensive care unit, you did that, correct?
Sorry?
She was admitted into the pediatric intensive care unit?
Yes.
Okay. Who did you discuss her case with?
Dr. Laura Vose.
Dr. Vose. Okay. What did you relay about Maya's condition?
I relayed to her the child's presentation and that the mother was demanding 1,500 milligrams of ketamine, and that I was unable to provide that service to the child in the emergency department, and that the child was going to need to be admitted to the ICU in order to provide such high doses of ketamine, if that was in fact what the child needed.
Okay. And again, none of this Munchausen by proxy discussion is reflected in your note. Is that correct?
Again, we don't make that diagnosis in the emergency department.
Of a protocol at the hospital to address Munchausen syndrome by proxy, or at least a protocol that was inclusive of the nursing department, what was your next step?
I didn't make that diagnosis in the emergency department, and therefore I had no reason to start any protocol,
You had a concern about Munchausen by proxy,
as I did for multiple other things.
but you took no further steps in pursuing that diagnosis. Is that correct?
Again, I don't make the diagnosis of Munchausen's by proxy in the emergency department.
I'm not asking you to make the diagnosis. I'm asking you, in allowing others to make the diagnosis, did you pursue any additional steps to inform them, other than talking with Dr. Vose?
No.
The book referred to as a child protection team medical director. Are you aware of a child protection team medical director within a hospital?
We don't have a child protection team director within the hospital. There's a child protection team physician for the county of Pinellas who serves as the consultant for the hospital, as well as for every hospital in the county.
Did you reach out to that person?
No.
Who would that be?
Sally Smith.
Do you know Sally Smith?
Yes, I do.
How do you know Sally Smith?
I worked with her years ago when I was the medical director for Hillsborough County.
And was she at that time the medical director in Pinellas County?
Yes, she was. She was a co-director with Mark Morris.
So you've worked closely with her in the past, is that correct?
I wouldn't say closely, but we were directors at the same time in different counties.
Okay. Do you count her as a friend?
No.
Do you consider Munchausen by proxy to be a form of child abuse?
It is a form of child abuse.
After you spoke with Dr. Vose, did you follow Maya's case?
No, I did not.
That was your last involvement with the case?
Yes, it was.
Were you made aware that a report of Munchausen by proxy was made?
No.
Never.
No.
When is the first you learned that the Kowalskis, and specifically Beata, were alleged to have abused their daughter Maya?
I can't remember the exact time that I was told. It was months later.
Was Maya still in the hospital when you were told?
I really don't know.
At this time, did you have any leadership position in the pediatric unit?
What time?
The time of Maya's admission, 2016.
What pediatric unit?
Well, I see here on your CV, you were the vice chairman of the Division of Pediatric Emergency Medicine.
Right.
Can you please detail your roles and responsibilities in that?
I'm responsible for ensuring that the pathways that we have in place are complied with, that I'm responsible for schedules, for patient complaints, review of medical records to make sure that that things are done appropriately in the unit.
Describe the term pathways for me.
Pathways are guidelines that the hospital has come up with, that we come up as multidisciplinary teams in order to make sure that the guidelines in evidence-based medicine treatment in place, or to comply with the latest things that we're supposed to be doing for different diagnoses. And
would you agree that protocol would be a synonym of pathway?
it's similar. It's not the same, but it's similar. Yeah.
Or perhaps if you had some sort of standard operating procedure within which to address mutualism by proxy, you would refer to it as a pathway at Johns Hopkins. Is that correct?
If it's written in the format that we have, yes.
Sure. But as you sat as the vice chair in 2016, there was no pathway or any other format for addressing mutualism by proxy, correct?
Not in the emergency department.
Correct. All right. And as the vice chair, you're generally familiar with the training and experience of the other pediatric physicians in that department?
Generally, yes.
Okay. Anyone else in that department that's previously served as a medical director of Hillsborough County for the child protection team?
No.
No. How many cases do you estimate you saw of child abuse during those 5 years?
In Hillsborough?
Correct.
I don't have a number to give you.
North of 100?
Probably.
Okay. More than 500?
I don't know. Probably somewhere in that range.
Okay. Are you aware of anyone within your department that has seen as many cases as you? As many cases of child abuse?
No.
And in the absence of a protocol, you were not consulted further?
No, I wasn't.
Despite your extensive experience. And the first time you became aware was months later, and you're not sure whether that was during Maya's admission or afterwards.
Yes, I can tell you the situation where I was informed about it.
Please do.
I was informed that by a resident who was talking to another resident that Maya's mother had committed suicide. At which point I questioned what had happened, and that's when I found out.
Mm-hmm. And you don't recall do you recall how long after Beata's suicide that would have been?
I don't know.
Okay. What was your reaction?
I was surprised.
You were surprised by Beata's suicide?
Yes.
Did you interact with Beata during that ER visit?
Yes.
And what was your impression of her?
She was a very, she came in very angry, demanding, shouting at her husband, very insistent on higher doses of ketamine. She wouldn't let her husband touch her child. She wouldn't let me do anything without giving more and more medication to her child.
Would she let anyone touch her child?
No. Well, she let the nurses draw blood. She didn't have a problem with that.
Okay. She resisted a CT scan, is that correct?
Yes, she did.
And she resisted an ultrasound, is that correct?
Well, let me correct that.
Okay.
She resisted the ultrasound unless I would give her more ketamine.
Okay.
She resisted the CT scan unless I gave her 1,500 milligrams of ketamine.
Right. And not being an anesthesiologist or pain management specialist, you didn't feel comfortable administering that ketamine in the ER, or you weren't allowed to. And so you admitted her to the intensive care unit, is that correct?
Well, the doses that we're allowed to give in the emergency department are in the 0.5 to 4 milligrams per kilo range.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount that she wanted to give was in the 45 to 50 milligrams per kilo range, which was absurd and not something that we are trained to or allowed to give in the emergency department.
Right. Who had been administering that ketamine to Maya previously?
To my knowledge and all that I had, the only information I had was that it was a Dr. Hannah in Clearwater.
Did you speak with Dr. Hannah?
I called his office to talk to him. He was not available.
Okay.
I spoke with a nurse type person. I don't know if it was a nurse practitioner or a nurse, but I spoke with a nurse.
Okay.
Who informed me of what their treatment had been.
Okay. And hearing that another doctor had been prescribing that treatment, your opinion was that the level of ketamine being requested was absurd, to use your phrase.
Yes.
Okay. Did you consult with any other doctors?
Yes, I called anesthesia.
Dr. Vose?
No, Dr. Vose is ICU.
Okay. I'm sorry. Who was in anesthesia?
I don't have a name, but
Okay.
I spoke with the anesthesiologist on call. And I spoke with the ICU.
Okay. Did you speak with anyone else outside the hospital besides Dr. Hannah's staff?
No,
Did you speak with Dr. Wassenaar?
no.
If you turn to page 2 of your note, which we marked as Exhibit 3, you see quarter of the way down, primary care physician.
Yes,
Dr. Wassenaar's name is listed there,
yes,
and his contact information is readily available,
yes,
but you didn't reach out to him.
no.
Okay. Do you know how long Maya had been suffering from CRPS at this point?
No. Although the father did tell me that the diagnosis was made a year and a half prior to her presentation.
Okay. Based upon my review of the record, it looks as if the report was made later that evening.
Okay.
He remained unaware of that.
I didn't make the report.
And you weren't aware that a report was made.
No, I wasn't.
Right. Did you consult with any psychologists?
No,
Despite the concern for psychogenic diagnosis, you did not consult with any psychologist.
it's not our habit to consult psychologists in the emergency department.
Okay. Is your understanding that that would be the intensive care unit's responsibility?
That is an inpatient consult. It's something that is not urgent.
Okay. After she was admitted to the PICU, she was considered an inpatient?
Yes,
Okay. So at that point, psychological consult would have been proper.
yes,
Okay. Do you know if one was performed?
no.
Okay. How would you classify your level of knowledge of CRPS?
I think, I don't know what kind of scale you're using.
Aware, familiar, expert,
Aware?
aware. If you were going to seek an outside opinion on a pediatric CRPS case, who would you go to in the state of Florida?
I don't have a specific name because I've not needed to. I usually refer to TGH. There's a CRPS clinic there, but I don't know the names of the people who work there.
Your testimony was you did not consult with anyone outside of the hospital other than Dr. Hannah's staff. Is that correct?
Outside the hospital, no. I contacted the pain management physician who was giving that kind of dosage to her in order to clarify exactly what the child was receiving.
And you're referring to Dr. Hannah's staff, correct?
Yes, yes,
And they confirmed that they had previously provided her on the day prior 1,500 milligrams. Is that correct?
Well, actually, I think the dose was 1,250 milligrams with 50 milligrams of 2% lidocaine, 1,750 milligrams of max sulfate, and 4 milligrams of Versed.
Okay. So Beata's request wasn't out of line with the previous day's dosage, was it?
It was actually higher. It was 1,500.
Right. Is it, how much higher is that?
250 milligrams.
Is that significant?
In a child who weighs 30 kilos, yes.
Had Beata asked for 1,250 milligrams, would you have felt that was not an absurd request?
You have to understand that the dose, the way that we give ketamine in the emergency department is different than the way she receives it in the pain management clinic.
Okay.
In the emergency department, we give it in a bolus form. So we push.
Okay.
Okay. Pain management gives it as an infusion, as a continuous infusion over hours.
Okay.
Okay. We don't have the nursing or the staff to monitor a child for that period of time in the emergency department. Nurses are not allowed to give ketamine in the state of Florida in the emergency department. Okay. So giving her 1,500 milligrams as a bolus is absurd.
Okay. The decision to admit Maya was made due to this staffing concern and inability to administer the ketamine dose as requested?
Among other things, yes.
Oh, okay, please detail the other things.
The fact that she would need to be monitored, the
Okay.
fact that she needed a pain management specialist to be supervising this, as well as the ICU.
Okay. Who did you speak with in the hospital in pain management?
I spoke with the anesthesiologist who was on call, and then he was going to, or she, I don't remember, was going to talk to the pain management group. I can read it to you if you want.
That'd be fun.
It says, I discussed the dosage with anesthesia, who stated that they would, it says given, but it's give more if needed after discussion with the pain management doctors and evaluation of patient on the floor.
Can you give us 3 names that you deal with most often in anesthesiology?
Dr. Elliott, I think it's Dr. Patel, and there's Dr. Drojanin,
Can you spell that? If not,
Drozzhinin.
okay. Those are the anesthesiologists you confer with most regularly.
Those are usually the people on call when I call to
Okay.
speak to somebody.
Okay. So the decision to, I'll make sure we get this right. The decision to admit Maya into the intensive care unit was due to a concern about the inability in the ER to administer ketamine via an infusion.
Correct.
And your understanding was, after talking with Dr. Vos and whoever you spoke with in anesthesia, that they would further consider whether that dosage was appropriate.
They would further consider the management of pain in this child,
Okay.
not necessarily specifically as it related to the dosage, but to control this child's pain in an adequate fashion.
Okay. And so Beata's concern was controlling Maya's pain. Is that correct?
Her concern was that I comply with the dosage of ketamine and that I actually give her the medication that she felt was necessary for the treatment of her child at that time.
And when you explained to her that you'd have to admit her to the intensive care unit for that to be administered, did she resist that?
She initially wanted me to get anesthesia to come to the emergency department, but I was unable to do so. And after I told her that it would have to be in the ICU and that I was not willing to give any further doses of ketamine, then she complied with that.
Okay. So she was in a bit of a rush to have ketamine administered.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with the wording in a rush. I think she definitely wanted to push her opinion of how the child's pain should be managed immediately.
Right. But after it was explained to her that that could not be done in the emergency department, she understood that message.
Unwillingly,
Unwillingly?
yes.
Well, I thought your earlier testimony was that she did not resist admission to the intensive care unit.
Didn't have an option because I was refusing to administer any further doses.
Right. She wanted her daughter comforted sooner rather than later.
No, she wanted her daughter to receive 1,500 milligrams of ketamine, which I was not willing to do in the emergency department.
Right. And when you explained to her that that could only happen in the intensive care unit, she allowed her daughter to be admitted.
As opposed to what?
As opposed to saying no.
Her goal was to get ketamine into this child.
Can that be understood as a goal of comforting her daughter?
I think there are many ways to comfort a child besides administering ketamine.
Where do you think she got the idea for 1,500 milligrams of ketamine?
I have no idea.
Is 1,250 milligrams in the range of 1,500 milligrams?
If you go by milligrams per kilograms, it's an excessive dose.
So had
Either
she
way.
asked for 1,250, you've been okay with that request?
No, I would not.
Okay. After speaking with Dr. Hanna's office, you still maintain that 1,250 was an absurd dose.
It was.
Okay. And that was based on your consult with anesthesiology.
No, that was based on my experience with working with ketamine in the emergency department and the fact that we give bolus doses and we do not exceed doses of about 4 milligrams per kilo in the ER.
Right. But once the difference between a bolus dose and an infusion was explained to Beata, she allowed her daughter to be admitted to the intensive care unit.
I don't recall having that conversation with her about bolus versus infusion.
Oh, you didn't explain to her that the problem was it would be a bolus dose and not an infusion.
I did not have that. I don't recall having that
Okay.
discussion with her.
So she remained unaware that your inability to administer that ketamine in the ER was because of the type of administration, bolus versus infusion.
She did not ask for an infusion. She asked for 1,500 milligrams of ketamine.
Did she ask for it in bolus form?
She didn't ask for infusion.
She didn't specify. Previously, Maya had been treated with infusion.
I don't know. I don't know what they did in Mexico. I don't know
The day
what
prior.
Dr. Hanna did
The day prior.
prior to that. I don't know. All I know is what I was given by a nurse in his office.
And the day prior, she received it via infusion. That was your testimony.
And the infusion was over 4 hours, apparently.
Okay. So it'd be reasonable to understand that Bial would be asking for similar treatment as the day prior.
I don't know if she ever got it in a bolus
Okay.
form.
And it was never explained to her that it was bolus versus infusion.
She didn't ask me, and I didn't even know what she was getting at that
Okay.
time.
Did you ever speak with Dr. Smith about the case?
No, I did not.
And to this day, you've not spoken with her about the case?
No, I haven't.
Your concern with, on that October day was over the amount of ketamine requested. Is that correct?
My concern was for the safety of the child. You don't want to give something to the child to cause any more problems.
Right.
So I couldn't comply with what the mom was requesting under in the emergency department. And the child needed further diagnostic testing to figure out why she had the abdominal pain. The mother was refusing to allow me to do any tests aside from the blood work in the urine unless I gave the ketamine. So I had to admit the child so that this could be done in a controlled fashion.
Why was the mother refusing?
Because every test that I ordered, the ultrasound, the CAT scan, she wanted mega doses of ketamine before I could do it, and I was not going to do it. I couldn't do it.
And was your read that that was born of her concern for her daughter's pain?
I don't know why she was so insistent that we had to do, because I was giving ketamine. I did give the child Versed. I just didn't give the amount that she wanted.
Did you give ketamine or Versed prior to the blood draw you mentioned earlier?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So only after
Well, actually, I'm sorry. Can I take that back?
Sure.
So we gave it IV, so she had to have had the blood draw.
So you gave ketamine and Versed via IV?
Correct.
So the blood was drawn previously?
The blood was drawn at the time when the IV was placed.
So your concern was over the level of ketamine being requested. Did you have concern about the 1,250 milligrams that was administered the day prior?
That dose seemed excessive to me, but I'm not a specialist in pain management, which is why A, I called to verify the dose. B, I wasn't sure if the mother even knew what she was talking about. I couldn't know. I had to find out exactly what she was talking about. And then I wanted to talk to the physician to see what they were doing.
Right.
And there was nobody there but some nurse.
And after confirming the dose of 1,250 milligrams, you still maintain that that was absurd. Is that correct?
I do.
Did you attempt to verify whether being under general anesthesia to treat CRPS is appropriate?
I called our anesthesiologist because I'm not a pain medication specialist. Yes, I did call. That
And,
was available to me at the time.
and what did they say about that?
They said that they would review it and decide what would be appropriate dosing for this child.
I have to go back to this word erratically. You said the mother was behaving erratically. I need to understand that. What was erratic about her behavior?
Her presentation, the way that she started shouting at the father, telling him not to touch her child, demanding the ketamine over and over again, not allowing me to do any testing, considering they were there for abdominal pain.
Are any of those things you just listed not explained by a daughter who's in excruciating pain?
What, telling your husband not to touch your child?
Why would you ask people not to touch your child?
I don't know. Why would you?
Well, one possibility is they're in extreme pain. Would you agree?
I think touching your child is a comforting measure. It's a reflex.
It's a reflex by the parents?
Most of the time, yeah.
Okay. So what was erratic about her behavior?
She was belligerent, demanding. She was shouting at her husband. She was not open to any conversation, or nothing was negotiable but her way. She was not concerned about the child's medical condition. If she had presented there for abdominal pain, you would want some tests to be done to find out why the child has abdominal pain. That was not her concern. Her concern was merely administering ketamine over and over and over and more and more and more.
Her objection to these tests was based on physical contact, correct?
She had no problem with blood being drawn.
Was the mother there for that?
No, I don't know. I don't remember.
Right. So as far as you're aware, when the mother was around, she resisted all physical contact.
Yes, she refused the blood pressure cuff.
She did allow you to admit the daughter to the intensive care unit after explaining you couldn't administer the ketamine, correct?
It was not negotiable to get an ultrasound on this child. It was not negotiable to get a CAT scan on this child. It's not negotiable to do anything to this child other than administer her ketamine.
And admit her to the PICU.
Because that was the only way she was going to get it.
Your total interaction with the Kowalskis lasted how long?
The time that they were in the hospital, in the ER.
And based on your note, my best read is that it was less than 2 hours. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And they've been dealing with this condition for 1.5 years.
Yes.
But you made a determination that the mother was acting improperly and erratically.
She was.
Okay. You, however, didn't feel it rose to the level to report it to the abuse hotline.
We have children that come to the emergency department with all kinds of parents. And we have to deal with it. People have all kinds of mental health problems. If I had to report every person that has a mental health problem to the abuse hotline, I think Florida's hotline wouldn't be able to handle it.
Who had a mental health problem?
When I mentioned that her behavior was out of the norm for what you see in the, in taking care of a child with chronic pain on any level, it doesn't raise to the level of having to report her to the abuse hotline.
Okay. You dealt with parents who had been similarly pushy?
I have dealt with many pushy parents. I've never had them refuse any tests unless I give them the medication in the dosage and in the way that they want.
How many pushy parents have you dealt with in the ER in the context of CRPS?
Actually, the CRPS parents are usually they're usually worn down.
Okay. I have to tie up. You said someone had mental issues. Who had mental issues?
I said that when you mentioned reporting her, if a person is being erratic, I didn't make a diagnosis in this patient to the extent of having to report her to the Department of Children and Families. We get people who behave in all kinds of ways in the ER. I don't go reporting all of them to the Department of Children and Families.
And you're aware of your statutory requirement to report reasonable suspicions of child abuse
Right.
because you have extensive experience in that area,
Mhm.
and it didn't rise to that level.
Not based on a two-hour encounter with a mother.
So she might have been pushy and belligerent, but not to the level that would require a hotline call.
No.
That concludes the presentation of Dr. Harpozy.
Okay, members of the jury, let's go ahead and take a break. Let's try to keep it to a 10-minute break. Do not discuss this case amongst yourselves. Do not do any investigation and receive no information, okay? Have a good break. Okay, the jury is out of our presence. Are there any issues that we need to address before we depart for our
No.
break?
Not for plaintiff.
Not for the defense.
Okay, when I come back, I'd like to have the time rundown for that depot. I'll need the one for the next depot as well. 10-minute break.
Yep, thank you.
licensure you obtained was the Doctor of Nursing.
Doctorate of Nursing Practice, it's known as a DNP. So when you're an ARNP, you can finish your doctorate and that gives you a DNP.
Can you talk to me a little bit about your experience as a pediatric rehabilitation and
Okay, so when I initially came to the rehab program, I had about, 12 years experience, but I had pediatrics experience starting in 1991, and I was certified at that time in pediatric critical care. When I came to Tampa General, I realized that that was somewhat of a new position, so I obtained a certification in rehab nursing to make sure that my knowledge level was documented regarding rehabilitative medicine in children.
So what kind of courses or hands-on training did you do in order to get this pediatric rehabilitation licensure?
It's not really a license, it's a certification. And basically Dr. Kornberg, I made rounds with him every single day, doing the exams. You know, when you're working as an ARNP for a physician or for the hospital, but you're primarily responsible to one physician, you follow their practice patterns, you learn their rules because you're very much an extension of them.
How long did you work with Dr. Kornberg?
12 years.
What else do you recall, independent of anything you may have reviewed about the hospitalization?
It was you know, I think rehab is very much about this multidisciplinary team. And I have to say that this was a frustrating case for the team. That's what I remember.
And why was it a frustrating case for the team?
Because I didn't, even though Maya was making functional progress, I didn't feel that we had gotten through to the family or that we'd helped the family. And I just felt like the mother and the daughter, they just weren't open.
What do you mean by that?
Every day when I would make rounds, part of my responsibility is to educate on what, to make families aware of what the child's deficits are and what the potential issues could be and how we may compensate for that. And then towards the end of the admission, if there's something that we can't compensate for, we want them to accept that the child may have an ongoing special need. Yeah, and I just felt like I couldn't move this family at all.
What do you mean by couldn't move this family?
I couldn't move them down their road of recovery, which is a road that, being a nurse, I kind of help patients through that road of recovery, and we do long-term follow-up. So we stay with these families even after they're discharged to make sure they get reintegrated to school, they have the appropriate equipment in the house, they have appropriate transportation, all that type of thing. So it's sort of like not a medical admission where we're working up medical things. We can do that, but as a rule, we didn't. We tried to move the patient from being a patient to being a child in society, back in the community.
Let me ask you this. Do you have any experience back when you were at Tampa General with treating children that are diagnosed with complex regional pain syndrome?
Yes.
Can you just generally describe what your experience with complex regional pain syndromes was back when you were working at TGH?
I think we had 1 or 2 children in the 12 years I was there that came in with complex regional pain syndrome. And really, I looked to Dr. Kornberg to lead the medical part of it, but it's where you have unexplained pain in one area or another that we can't find a physio.
In connection with the complex regional pain syndrome patient, ever do what's known as a ketamine coma at Tampa General?
No.
Do you know what a ketamine coma is?
Yes.
To your understanding, what is it?
It's an infusion of ketamine. But, you know, I have to tell you that for my time at Tampa General, ketamine was a very tightly controlled drug and wasn't even allowed to be used on the floor where we were.
Why
And I know that they were using ketamine now in a number of different ways, but it's all new since 2015.
Are you familiar with the Dr. Anthony Kirkpatrick? He used to be on staff at Tampa General. Do you know who that is?
I don't recognize the name.
It has been suggested in a blog entry by Beata Kowalski that you were practicing witchcraft on Maya Kowalski at Tampa General Hospital. Were you practicing witchcraft in connection with Maya Kowalski?
No, I'm not a witch, and I don't practice witchcraft. I don't even believe in witchcraft. I'm a scientist.
Understood. And it's fair to say that you were using evidence-based practices in your treatment of Maya Kowalski?
Absolutely. The only thing that we had that was, it was a consult to integrative medicine. We did have a team there at Tampa General that would do things like Reiki massage, aromatherapy. We did some disability yoga, breathing exercises. So we had consulted them just to see if they could help with Maya's complaints of pain.
Can you please describe what your independent recollection is?
Okay. So, like I said, my job was kind of to be that holistic person and lead them down. Usually, you know, it's a road of grief, of accepting that maybe their child was in an accident, maybe other people were killed or whatever. So we're on this sort of grief and coping road together.
Do you have any personal animosity towards Mrs. Kowalski?
Absolutely not. I tried to connect with her in every way I could think. And our joke in rehab was, we'll try 1,000 different things to get kids moving again. And I think Dr. McCain and I talked about this mom almost every day because I felt like I couldn't connect and I couldn't sway her perception of reality.
What do you mean by perception of reality?
She was hyper-focused on medical tests and treatments, and the team felt that the child's problems had a very heavy psychological and psychiatric overlay.
Okay, what is a history and physical?
A history and physical, when the patient first comes in, you want to find out, you have usually records from the referring hospital. We were a referral service, so people referred into us. You have some records from the referring hospital, and then you go in and question both. I admitted the family as a unit. There are discharge plan, how this kid's going to go home, and we've all got to, you know, cope together and move forward, and they needed to learn what they needed to learn and be able to cope with that. And so I would start right away trying to form a relationship with the child, the family. And I remember this kid came in with her father, and he was a very good historian. He had medical background too.
You recall what his medical background was?
Something in first responder, EMT, paramedic, firefighter, something.
Who was the referring physician for this hospitalization?
It was Dr. Hart. We worked very closely with him.
Okay, and Dr. Hart, I think you said, is a pediatric physiatrist over at All Children's Hospital?
All Children's, yes.
Okay. And what was the estimated stay for this hospitalization, as best you can tell from the H&P?
Oh heavens, we estimated 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay. And is that where it says ELOS, estimated 4 to 6 weeks?
Yes, and so because we're a functional admission, these children would not be in the hospital if they weren't there to make functional gains, as a rule. Not always, but as a rule. So, you can sign out at any time. It's not like a regular hospitalization. We're helping you to walk and take care of yourself and go to the bathroom on your own and feed yourself. And if there's a mental disability or a speech issue or swallowing issue, we would get speech involved. And so you can sign out at any time. And so we want to make sure that the family understands what our length of stays might look like. However, this occurs before the 48 hours of evaluation that occurs by the therapy team. In that first 48 hours, everybody on the team sees this child, evaluates the child from their perspective. So each person would evaluate the child from their perspective, and then we'd bring it back and change the plan of care accordingly.
What's your recollection of any discussions that you had with Dr. Kornberg about this patient?
We talked on a daily basis. I let him know that from my holistic standpoint, in terms of her, the mother and the child, that I felt we weren't connecting. We weren't being therapeutic. There was just a wall there.
What was Dr. Kornberg's position on this?
I don't think he felt it quite like I do, because I'm a nurse, right? So we were empaths, yeah, he had some of the same concerns, and the team all shared and discussed our concerns.
I noticed
Yes.
you used the term team a few times. Do you consider this to be a team approach to what you guys were doing at the TGH?
Yes, the main thing for conversion disorder or any rehabilitative patient, like I said, it's not really a medical admission. We can do medicine and we do medicine, but it's all about the functionality of the child, and that requires a multidisciplinary team of really talented people that are evaluating this kid every single day and communicating. And we just had a tremendous team at that time, and I know the team expressed frustrations that we were getting Maya more functional. She was moving forward in a functional realm, but we didn't feel that that was something that was going to be able to be maintained.
What is the significance of a normal CPK finding as referenced here on the H&P that you drafted?
It may mean that it's not a steroid myopathy and there may be some other pathology going on.
What is your recollection of Maya's asthma status during the period of time she was at Tampa General?
I felt she was stable from an asthma standpoint. We were not escalating medical therapy or treatments.
My understanding too was that prior to coming to Tampa General, Maya was admitted to Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago. Do you know anything about that hospitalization?
Yeah, that was another full workup for a second opinion. She had Dad had worked in Chicago. They had a primary care physician in Chicago, and they wanted the workup done there just to kind of verify everything that All Children's was telling them, I guess. I don't know.
Did you ever see any of the records from Lurie Children's Hospital?
The family did bring in the records, and eventually Dr. Kornberg was able to get the disc open and reviewed all the records and said it was a comprehensive workup.
Let's walk through more of this now. When Maya presented, what was her ambulatory status?
She was not ambulating. She was being carried to the bathroom by her father.
How would she get around upon presentation?
Yes, so she didn't leave her bed.
Okay. It says here she uses her wheelchair as her primary mode of locomotion.
Oh yes, if she was going to the playroom or the gym, she would go in a wheelchair.
I probably should have asked this earlier, but what do you recall about Maya from a personality standpoint based on your interactions with her?
So she was sweet. She was interactive. She was pleasant until the physical exam, and then it would just rapidly deteriorate. There would be whimpering and crying, some screaming. As soon as you went to examine her, there was. It seemed like she was resistant to the exam or upset by the exam. I don't know.
And then the next line, Nurse Rice says, she adjusts arms and legs for comfort and wipes her own tears away with her right hand. Why is that something that you put in the H&P?
Because, you know, she was not feeding herself. Her mother was feeding her. When her, and I didn't know this until after the H&P, but, you know, we're going to write down every single type of movement we see so that we can work with what we have. And that's part of my assessment. So that's why it was so specific. But I have to say that my interactions and observations of her were not consistent with what her dad was telling me about her dependency.
So after engaging in those, it says here, she, quote, she stopped crying and stated, quote, I don't distract easily, end quote, and then commenced crying. Do you see that line?
Uh-huh.
Why is it that you included that in your H&P?
Yeah, so that's unusual, you know, that she, first of all, that a fourth grader would know what distraction was and that she doesn't distract easily is, you know, she was a very smart little girl. And so I felt that was just something just that I hadn't seen in children before, just this stopping of the crying and then making a statement. Because usually when people are in tremendous pain, they're whimpering and they're not, they might get angry, but they certainly don't, they don't stop and say, the technique you're using isn't going to work.
Okay.
I just hadn't had that from a child before.
And then under neuro, and I imagine that's neurological, correct?
Yeah.
It says she has pain everywhere, cannot describe pain. Why did you include that in the H&P?
Well, normally we want to know all about the pain. We want to know the onset. We want to know the location. We want to know, you know, how long have you had it? What's an aggravating factor? This is part of how we're going to treat her pain if pain ends up being her primary symptom.
And up to the point that you were treating Maya Kowalski as of 2015, how many years had you been working in the pediatric nurse practitioner physiatry realm?
Let's see, probably 7 or 8.
Okay, can you approximate how many patients that you saw in your TGH unit with Dr. Kornberg over those several years?
Probably close to 500.
Okay,
You know, do you have it worse in the morning? I have it all the time. And so then I would say, well, where is it on your head? You know, you're trying to figure out what's going on. She came in with this history of steroid-induced myopathy, and that was per the father's report. And I knew she had been seen by endocrinology over at All Children's and had been on a steroid wean. So that's our number one thing, because we're either trying to confirm that or move on to another possibility. She was not walking, so that gives her gait disorder, impaired mobility, and ADLs is what the occupational therapies do. That's activities of daily living. They're going to teach her to bathe herself, brush her own teeth, clothe herself, that type of thing. And they'll even get memory. They'll do some memory type things. And then her asthma, we were actively treating for that. So I wanted to list that. Myalgia means muscle pain. Myalgia means pain in the muscles. Myositis can mean inflammation in the muscles, although we didn't have any objective findings that we could say that there was inflammation. There certainly wasn't any redness or swelling or anything like that. She had no fever. There was no sign of inflammation, really. We also were trying to get her communion, I remember, because her mother was Catholic. And we'll try and heal the entire person, mind, body, spirit. So integrative medicine, like one of the things we were trying to work with her on, or I'll try instead of I can't, because she would just scream, I can't do it. And we wanted her stronger, is what we would tell her.
Do you have any other experiences or observations that were similar to what Dr. Kornberg noted there?
Yes, but this was very common for Maya. When her mother was in the room, she would, and sometimes her dad, but mostly her mother, she would just stop functioning. And she would not, you could see her doing things that indicated she had the muscle ability to examine her or try to motivate her to do something. She would use the crying and tears, and we felt there was probably a huge psychiatric overlay there.
Okay, all right.
Although we did treat her pain. Yeah, we did treat the pain.
So we walked through the physical exam, we walked through your H&P. Is there anything that as we walked through the H&P that triggered a recollection or a memory of your time with either Maya or her parents that we haven't discussed?
Yeah, so I don't know exactly, Maya is a very smart little girl. And I don't know if when they're spastic, but when we would try to work with her, she would assume this classic spastic legs. And she would say, I can't do this. I just can't do it. My legs don't move. I can't do it. And yet when she was up in the bed, I could see her moving her legs just fine, rubbing up against the covers, not having pain.
Yeah, but that lady
So
said
it was very puzzling, very, very puzzling.
What do you mean by spastic?
Yeah, so we're the experts at muscle motor movement disability. Spastic is something that happens usually in the nervous system. It's very complicated, and I'm not sure science completely is shut off. So you end up being your body starts to twist into certain shape, very similar problems versus a dystonia. And I know that's in the chart too. That's where your limb is basically frozen like a statue into a spastic position. Most kids that we dealt with were on a trajectory, sort of knew what to expect. Now, would they surprise you all the time? But, you kind of 80% of like principle, 80% of the kids did usually this trajectory. So they would get on a recovery trajectory and could kind of tell how far they were going to go as an inpatient, and then outpatient therapy plans would look like. She actually had some, go back to being a normal muscle movement.
Okay.
When she was with him.
Yeah, what they
Is it
say.
fair to say that Maya's functionality at times would vary depending on who was around?
Absolutely.
Okay, why don't you explain that a little bit more for me?
So when her mother would enter the room, it just became kind of a battle of the wills between the two of them. I mean, it was the weirdest, one of the weirdest mother-daughter dyads I've ever seen in my life. I'm not sure we helped this family. It over the other. As a matter of fact, they showed kind of indifference to each other. But if mother would say, we need to get her back to her skating or swimming or whatever extracurricular activities, Maya would just look at me, not her mother, and say, I'm not going to be doing that. So there was this like battle of the wills. I'm not a psychologist. That's why I talk to Dr. McCain so many times, because I didn't know where to go next.
And then, in one of her notes, it's at TGH 42 to 47. It says that at one point in Nurse Hussey's exam, it was noted that Maya could stretch her legs and arms, and she appeared to do so with ease. But later on in the examination, she took my hand and refused to use her arms and legs to evaluate range of motion. Observation. But did you have any similar interactions similar to that with Maya?
Every day.
Every day from that whole month?
Her mother was present. She would just deteriorate. And that was why the team was so concerned, because we can get you functional again, but if we send you back into a home where you're with your parents and you're just going to deteriorate,
She changed when her mama come around.
and frequently assess your pain and see what happens. And in fact, her pain wasn't exacerbated as we weaned off the narcotics.
Okay, yeah, it says in your note here that when not focused on functional tasks, Maya moves her BLEs into various positions for comfort and uses upper extremity to position for comfort in the wheelchair. Um, what is that in your
psych stay.
In that same note, there is a reference to the fee being pointed